One of the things that I was very interested when I got the tweet from Matt Delahanty in reference to this subject is, see, I grew up in a Christian cult known as Jehovah's Witnesses for nearly 22 years. And one of the main facets in regards to most religious entities, you know, you always hear the stories, and of course they're incredibly disgusting, but, you know, we always hear the stories strictly on the basis of the Catholic Church, which, of course, should be spoken about. But one of the biggest issues I see is, you know, I'm very big into statistics. I run a YouTube channel and where I talk about, you know, factual information based on, you know, FBI statistics and stuff. And one of the biggest things I don't see a lot of religious folks talking about is how they themselves are the largest, you know, causers in reference to abuse among these entities, you know what I mean? And it's a quite sad phenomenon for me. I don't know what you guys think about that, or what's, you know, your opinion.
Yeah, it's all about whether or not trans women can go into a bathroom with cis women to avoid the potential of abuse with like 0 documented assaults versus the very real threat that is going on in a lot of these, particularly the highly cloistered religious communities.
Well, see, one of the biggest things, so like, I'll give you a prime example. So when I was growing up around 9 years old, I'm not going to give, you know, like extreme details, but one of the biggest things that happens among the Jehovah's Witnesses, for example, and this is coming from a person that was really deep into this faith, is the amount of cover-up that happens, for example, with that religious organization is immense. So a prime example of this, there was a little girl that I actually had a little crush on when I was younger. And this individual, unfortunately, based on the small congregation I belonged to, became a victim of her stepfather, who was a prominent figure within our congregation. And during that time, the mom wasn't a full-fledged member, because she wasn't what they call baptized, or actually into the you know, full-fledged organization. But anyways, come to find out that the stepfather, or her step-grandfather, had physically abused her. And when the elders were confronted with this information in regards to the standing member of our congregation at the time, the elders literally whitewashed the situation. So the mother, to put it in a nutshell, what exactly happened at the end is the mother pretty much got kicked out of the church because she actually decided to do the right thing and go above their heads to actually call the police. And unfortunately, well, it's not unfortunate, that's a good thing, but that entire family, as far as with my knowledge, that entire family no longer belongs to that organization, strictly because of that situation. And this, I don't know, you know, if it happens a lot toward other denominations, it wouldn't surprise me. But this is a prime example of something like, I was going to make a mention, I don't see a lot of religious organizations willing to self-police themselves in regards to this type of abuse, especially when they do intentional cover-ups. Or I can't even imagine if it's like a very, because you know the Jehovah's Witnesses are nowhere near as prevalent of like Baptists or other denominations. But it makes me wonder if these other sects of Christianity that are considered like small-knit groups, like the Mormons, the Amish, or so on, how prevalent these type of situations happen at those locations.
Yeah, when you have a group that has power or status, and that power or status especially is linked to some sense of moral high ground, or just being connected to something that gives you that morality, then any hint of being immoral is a threat. It's a threat to the power of the system, of those, all the people that have power or prestige in it. And so there's obviously going to be an immediate urge to cover that up.
Yeah, see, well, I was listening to your guys' folks' earlier call in reference to, you know, natural instincts and all that stuff in regards to LGBT topics. I caught the very front end of it. See, one of the things that really I just, in regards to religious entities, especially among evangelical Christians, for example, and I'm not trying to single out there because Islam does the exact same thing, but like I'm very prevalent on YouTube. I watch YouTube a lot, and I know, some, maybe you guys aren't perfect, maybe you are, but one of the major things I hear, like, among these supposed skeptics on YouTube is how they always throw shade, for example, in regards to Islam, in reference to child abuse, in regards to, like, child marriages. But one of the biggest things I have issues with on YouTube, example, with these individuals, is it is fair to criticize this injustice and this stuff that happens to these individuals, but they just seem to literally give a green light for the same issues that are occurring either in Europe or in the United States, particularly in reference to these religious groups, because they don't want to alienate their demographics or their viewers. And that's another thing I've been noticing. It's pretty sad, to be honest.
There's a form of nationalism that comes with religion, right? It's part of your culture.
I think we can call it tribal. I mean, when it comes down to it, it's tribalism.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so a big part of that is demonizing the other without necessarily acknowledging what's going on under your own tent.
If you're not telling people, oh, we're the good ones, then who's going to listen to you?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, to me, to be honest, to be fair, I think it goes a little bit further than that, though. To me, I recently watched a podcast between two individuals. I am going to be honest, I'm a left-wing individual in regards to my politics. But in regards to, like, a recent podcast between Joe Rogan and an individual like Kyle Kalinske, they had a really, Joe Rogan made a very amazing point in reference to the subject. And basically, there is a large group of people he called a fake actors in reference to, literally, like, pretending to be something. They don't truly believe what they espouse online or on their platform, and all they do is literally to garner money and clicks. And they don't. The biggest problem for me is these individuals don't understand how damaging that is toward other individuals, especially when we're trying to provide an outlet for people to actually get logical information. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think the poster child for that was Alex Jones. Recently had to basically testify in court that all the shit that he says on his show is just for entertainment purposes. It's not meant to be taken seriously, and anybody who didn't know that should have, even though that's very much how it's always presented. Not I'm playing a character, but that this is truth. This is a reality.
This is who I am. This is what I believe. This is.
Well, I think, to me, one of the things, like, for example, when it comes to, I don't know. I mean, especially with the current political climate and where we're currently facing, especially with the current situations with, like, what just happened this past day, and going back into the subject I was originally mentioned about the abuse scandals, it just, to me, one of the most dishonest things I see among the religious entities is, they're willing to throw shade on other individuals in regards to these horrendous crimes, these horrendous acts that people commit, yet they want to ignore, the actual demographics. For example, just to give you, in reference to what happened yesterday, right-wing terrorism. Now, I personally am holding judgment on what actually happened yesterday, but if you look at FBI statistics, for example, the FBI clearly demonstrates, based on the data coming back for 20 years, that the number one purveyor of terrorism, other than Islamic extremism, is right-wing terrorism. And I'm not trying to say this because I'm trying to be a partisan act, but this is, anybody can Google this, search on it on the internet, type in FBI, crime statistics on terrorism, and they'll find the exact same thing. The same thing applies toward a religious study. The FBI have consolidated one of the biggest tropes I see in regards to abuse scandals I hear all the time is how, in regards to, like, women supposedly, filing claims or making false accusations, especially with the recent thing that happened with Kavanaugh. Yet they don't understand that most of the people that are abused in relation to this type of situation, if you look at the data from non-biased sources, it clearly shows that women overwhelmingly men overwhelmingly abuse women than the opposite. You know what I mean? Of course, both of them happen. And that's my biggest thing. I guess one of the biggest reasons why I became an atheist and why I got out of that cult is I just got tired of people panting toward a specific demographic when it comes to information, when anyone, especially in the internet age, can clearly look up what the truth is or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sorry for ranting.
Oh, no. You know, every so often we all need a rant. I would say that the statistics you mentioned, just in short to wrap it up, are, I think, identify more extremism in whatever form it can be found. There are extremes everywhere. So.
Yeah, and there are great documentaries that bear out the point that you're making about how, you know, previous to the focus on Islamic terrorism, that the FBI was looking a lot more at like right-wing extremist groups and things like the KKK and Oklahoma City bombing and all of this. And now that the focus has been taken off of them for 20 years, you're starting to see those weeds grow up and a lot more. And these are real issues and things that we should be looking at. So yeah, your point is very well taken, that there is definitely a tribalism that goes along with religion that ignores
abuse.
It ignores abuses going on in our own backyards, in our own churches and synagogues and under our own tent poles. And
we have an entire episode, actually, if you go back 3 weeks, we have an entire episode about that.
Yeah, I apologize. I will have to I have to update myself in reference to your guys' content. Like I said, I actually didn't know about it until earlier today. But
okay, well, really, great. Thanks for checking us out.
Oh, I will. I promise. As soon as I'm finished speaking with you guys, I will. I promise. The biggest point, I guess, I want to like put out in reference to this. You know, that's one of the reasons why I became a secular minister. You see, I don't like identity politics. I don't like. I'm not going to throw shade on people who consider themselves feminists or people that are considered masculinists, however you pronounce that. But my biggest problem is, like, one of the reasons why, in my opinion, you know, as a secular humanist, you would be against identity politics and political correctness. It comes down to a very simple principle. If you look at what humanism is, humanism by its context is defined as basically the betterment of mankind on the principles of secular and scientific teachings and understanding. And, you know, that means for all humans, you know, for everyone. It doesn't matter if someone's LGBT, doesn't matter if someone is conservative, liberal, it doesn't matter what your demographic is.
Right.
And I guess that's one of the biggest problems I have with the people that are the antis and the people that are the supposedly SJWs. Is they push identity politics, or they claim to be against identity politics, for example, yet they themselves don't understand that they are advocating the exact arguments they claim to be against. And it just goes against the very principles of to me when it comes to humanism. So I don't know, maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I think we could quibble over some of the language and some of the specifics, but I think it's fair to say that hypocrisy is live and well
in every
our current
branch
culture.
Of everywhere.
No question. And yeah, I hope that we are doing the best that we can as atheists in policing ourselves and being responsible contributors to the world. So I appreciate you marking it on that, and thank you so much for calling.
You too, guys, and I look forward to your guys' future show, and thanks for your time, okay?
Hey, thank you.
Of course.
Thanks.